nutty pecan bars have a crisp shortbread crust coupled with a chewy pecan topping that is reminiscent of a classic pecan pie. To amp up the flavor, I've added some ground up pecans into the shortbread crust along with the pecans that are obviously included in the topping. And I've swapped maple syrup for the commonly used corn syrup, and the maple flavor complements the pecans brilliantly. And if you're new here, I'm Maggie. This is No Frills Kitchen, where I teach you how to cook with confidence with nothing fancy required.
Before you get to making any element of these bars, make sure to toast your pecans. Because we use pecans in both the filling and the crust, toast everything together. Add them to a rimmed baking sheet and then toss the nuts in a 180C 350F oven for about 5 minutes. Keep the oven on, that's the temperature it should be at when we bake our bars. While they're toasting, take this time to prep your pan. Use butter or cooking spray to coat your 20 centimeter or 8-inch square pan and then press some parchment paper overlapping onto it. You can use this like a sling to remove the bars later. Now it's time to make your crust. Separate out a handful of your toasted pecans and then grind them fine. You can do this by chopping them very finely with a knife, or more quickly and consistently, you can also do it in a food processor. If you'd like to save time, the entire crust can be made in a food processor as well. However, it's simple and easy just to make it by hand. In a large mixing bowl, whisk together the ground pecans, flour, sugar, salt, and baking powder. Weigh out some cold butter and then cut it into cubes. Add it to the bowl and then use your fingertips to smash it into the flour mixture until the butter is in very small pieces and there aren't any large discernible pieces of butter visible. Then it's time to add in an egg yolk, which does a great job at binding the crust together. I like to freeze my unused egg whites to use later. They come in handy if I'm making a meringue, marshmallows, or buttercream. Use a fork to mix the egg yolk into the crust until it's well combined. Now scatter the crust over your prepared baking dish, using your fingers to press evenly into the bottom of the pan and to compact it completely. Once you've done this, move the crust to the freezer for about 10 minutes to firm up and ensure that it's not too puffy when baking. Then move it to the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, or until it's golden brown and crisp. Allow your crust to cool for at least an hour before making the filling. You can also make the crust a day in advance. Next, onto the filling. After a few attempts, I've determined that the best way to ensure that you get the right texture for the filling that doesn't also turn the crust soggy is to cook the filling for a few minutes. But first, let's go ahead and just roughly chop the rest of your toasted pecans. Now, in a small saucepan, combine some maple syrup, light brown sugar, and unsalted butter. Set the pan over medium heat and, stirring frequently, gently melt the butter and bring the mixture to a boil. Allow the mixture to boil for a few minutes. Stir constantly during this time before taking it off the heat. Let the bubbles subside and then off heat, stir in a bit of heavy cream, some vanilla extract, and a bit of salt. At this point, you basically have a toffee sauce. Then stir in the rest of your chopped pecans, ensuring everything is well combined. Once the pecans are incorporated, spread the topping over the cooled crust, ensuring everything is evenly distributed and the filling is spread consistently over it. Now, all you have to do is bake the bars. Return the pan to the oven and bake for another 20 to 25 minutes. You want the filling to be golden and bubbling throughout. It will look pretty liquidy when you take it out of the oven, but don't be alarmed. It will set completely as it cools. Just make sure to allow the bars to cool completely before removing them from the pan. When I do this, I like to run a knife along the edge just to make sure it releases cleanly. Use the parchment overhang to easily lift the bars in one slab from the pan, and then cut them into 16. Wrapped tight, the bars will keep for a few days at room temperature. And if you liked this recipe, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my next videos. Enjoy!